I've had a few requests from you guys to create an in-depth guide on exactly how you're supposed to use these answer files in my UnattendedWinstall GitHub project here, and how you should go about creating the Windows installation media and getting it installed on your computer. So that's exactly what I'm going to be showing you in this video. So if you head over to the UnattendedWinstall GitHub page and you go down to the usage instructions down here, I've provided two methods that you can use to install Windows on your computer with the autounattended answer file. So in this video, I'm going to be showing both of these methods to you step by step. And what I'm going to be doing is, for method 1, I'm going to be installing Windows 10 on a computer. I'm not going to be using a virtual machine. I'm going to be using actual hardware and take you through the installation step by step. But here I'm going to be using Windows 10, but you can also use method 1 to install Windows 11. I'm just going to be showing Windows 10 as an example for method 1. And then on method 2, I'm going to be installing Windows 11 just as an example. But like I said, you can use whatever method you want, and you can use whatever Windows version you want. I'm just doing it this way as an example. So for both method 1 and method 2, the very first step is to download your preferred auto-unattended answer file and then save it to your computer. So to do that, you just need to scroll up on this page. When you get to this section where you can choose one of the following, at the time of this recording, I've got an Internet of Things LTSC-like version, which is recommended for most people. Then I've got a standard version, and then I've got a core version, which is going to be coming out sometime in the future. But I might release even more versions in the future. But at the time of this recording, this is what I have. So in this tutorial video, I'm going to be installing the LTSC-like version. So I'll click on that. And it's going to take you directly to the unattended answer file. And now to download it, you can click on this download raw file button here, and that's going to download the XML file to your computer and save it to wherever your downloads are set to save to. If that doesn't work for some reason, you can always just click on this raw button here. Then it's going to open the XML file in your web page, and you can then right click anywhere on this page. Then you can click on save as, and then you can just choose a download location. I'm going to be saving it on the desktop, and you can then just go ahead and click on save. Now you just saw me download the file already. That's why you see it there on the desktop, because that's where my downloads are saved to. And that's why I'm being prompted to replace it. So I'm just going to click on no, because I already have the file. I just wanted to show you both of these ways that you can use to download the auto-unattended answer file. But if we head back to the main page and we have a look at the method 1 instructions here, we now have our preferred autounattended XML file. So that's the first step for both methods. Now we need to download either Windows 10 or Windows 11, and that's the same for method 1 and method 2. Now I do mention here in method 1 that you can create a Windows 10 or Windows 11 bootable USB with the media creation tool or Rufus. In this guide, I'm going to be using Rufus. I'm not going to be using the media creation tool. To be honest with you, I don't really ever use the media creation tool to create these bootable installation drives. I normally always use Rufus or Ventoy, which is what I'm going to be using in method 2. So I'm not going to be showing you how to use the media creation tool in this video because I just don't use it. I normally always use Rufus. But to continue with the guide, I'm going to download both Windows 10 and Windows 11. So I'm just going to hold down Control and then click on these links, and that's going to open it in new tabs up here. Now to download Windows 10, normally you would need to use the media creation tool to actually get the ISO file. But I'm going to be showing you a quick little trick where you can just download the ISO file directly. And firstly, you need to be using a Chromium-based browser like Google Chrome or Microsoft Edge, or I think even Brave browser is Chromium-based. But as long as it's a Chromium-based browser, you can press F12, and that's going to open the developer tools here on the right. Now, once this is open, you're going to see this ellipsis menu here. You can just click on that. Then you can go to More Tools, and then you want to look for Network Conditions. You can click on Network Conditions, and then it should open up here at the bottom. Then you want to have a look at User Agent. Just uncheck this box and then click on Custom, and then you can either choose BlackBerry BB10 or you can choose Chrome OS, and then just press F5 on the keyboard, or you can just reload this page. And then once it's reloaded, you're going to see that this page has changed, and you can use this page to download the ISO file. So if you just scroll down, you'll be able to download the Windows 10 Multi-Edition ISO. You can just click on Confirm. You can then just select your product language. I'm using English United States, and then just click on Confirm. And then once the download links have been generated, you can download the 32-bit or 64-bit version. But my answer file doesn't work on 32-bit versions of Windows, so you need to download 64-bit here. So if you go ahead and click on that, it's going to start the download for the Windows 10 ISO file. Now, if you go over to Windows 11, it's a lot easier to download the ISO file directly. You can just scroll down on this page, then you have this option here to download the Windows 11 disk image, and you can go through the same process as with Windows 10. You can just select the multi-edition ISO, click on download now. Once again, select your product language, click on confirm, and then you'll be able to download Windows 11, which only has a 64-bit. So if I go ahead and click on that, it's also going to start the download for Windows 11. And the latest version at the time of this recording is 23H2. So these downloads are going to take quite some time, but I'll just be speeding this up in the video. So once the ISO files has finished downloading, you should be seeing them on your computer. And like I said, I'm downloading all of this to my desktop. But once you've downloaded your desired version of Windows, we can move on to the next step. And that is to download Rufus. So once again, I'm just going to open this in a new tab. And then Rufus is something that helps you create bootable USB drives. And if you scroll down on this page, you can then download the Rufus standard exe file. And once it's finished downloading, you can just open it. You can check for updates if you want. And then it's going to open Rufus on the computer. Now at this point, you need to go ahead and plug in your USB flash drive into the computer. As you can see, it's detecting my device, which is a PQI flash drive, which is 32 gigabytes. And the flash drive that you use for this needs to be at least 8 gigabytes in size. And it's also important to note that it will format the flash drive. So if you have any files on that flash drive that's important, you need to back up those files before you continue. So once it's detected your device, you can then go ahead and click on this select button here. And then you'll need to select the ISO file that you downloaded for either Windows 10 or Windows 11, whichever version you decided to use. Like I said, I'm going to be installing Windows 10 in method 1. So I'm going to select the Windows 10 ISO file. Then for the image option, you can leave this on standard Windows installation. Then next, you'll have the partition scheme and target system. Now, if you have a modern computer, you can just leave this on GPT and UEFI. But if you have a really old computer, I want to say something that was manufactured before 2012, then you might need to change this to MBR and then it will change to BIOS. But for most people, you'll just leave GPT selected with UEFI as the target system. Now, for this volume label, you can maybe change this to something like the Windows version, in my case, Windows 10, and just put the word unattended next to it so you know that it's going to be the unattended Windows installation. The file system I'll leave on NTFS, and I'm going to leave that cluster size on the defaults as well, and then just click on Start. Now, for both Windows 10 and Windows 11, you're going to see this box appear that says Windows User Experience, and if you want to customize the Windows installation. You mustn't select any checkboxes in this window here. If you select one of these checkboxes, Rufus will create its own unattended answer file, and then most probably my answer file won't be read during the installation. So I even have this important note here that says, when you're using Rufus, don't select any of the checkboxes in the Customize Your Windows Experience window, as it creates another answer file and we don't want that. So once again, whether you're using Windows 10 or Windows 11, when you get this box, don't select any of these checkboxes. Just click on OK. Then in the next window, you're going to see some prompts with regards to the flash drive. Apparently my flash drive is in use at the moment, but we need to format it anyway. So go ahead and click on yes. And then you'll also get a warning saying that the flash drive will be formatted. So if there's any data on it, it will be deleted in the process. That's why I said you have to make a backup of the files if there are any important files on your flash drive. But to continue, you can then go ahead and click on OK, and then Rufus is going to start creating the Windows installation USB. So once again, this might take some time, but I'll obviously speed it up in the video. So once Rufus has finished creating the drive, you can then close it. You can then navigate to this PC, and then go to the Windows installation USB that Rufus just created. Then once you have it, you can double click on it to open it, and you should be seeing these files, which are the Windows setup files. So what you want to do now is you want to get the autounattended.xml answer file that you downloaded from my GitHub page. Then you can just copy and paste it in here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on it and then drag it into the folder here, which will copy it to the USB flash drive that Rufus created. And one very important thing that you need to have a look at here is the file name needs to be exactly like you see it here. It needs to be autounattend.xml. And once again, you can see that I have included a note here in the usage instructions that says the file must be included on the root of the Windows installation media, and the file name must be autounattend.xml or else it won't execute. So once you've done that, where you have your Windows installation USB with the autounattend answer file included onto it, you can then go ahead and restart your computer and boot from it. And I'm going to be installing this on one of my computers, and I'm going to take you through that process step by step. So I'll just close this, and then I'm going to start up the other computer. So while my computer is starting up, I'm going to press F12 on the keyboard because that's what's going to open my boot menu, as you can see there. And this might be different on your computer, but in that case, you'll have to do a Google search to find out what the boot menu key is, so you can go ahead and select another boot device. Now, as you can see here, from my different boot options, I've got the SSD, which is what I'm going to install Windows on. Then I've got two boot options for the flash drive. One of these options has UEFI in front of it and the other one doesn't. Now, without making it too complicated, you get two boot modes that you can use to boot from, and one is called Legacy or CSM and the other one is called UEFI. Now, like I explained when we created the flash drive with Rufus, if you have a modern computer, you'll be using the UEFI option. So I'm going to select the UEFI option and then press enter. And that's then going to start booting from the Windows installation USB that we just created with Rufus. So it's then going to take you to the first Windows setup screen here. And if you've installed Windows before, you should be familiar with all of the steps that I'm going to do now. But I'm just going to go through each one of them just for the sake of being thorough in this video. So in my case, I'm just going to select my region and language here. And once that's done, just click on Next. I'm not going to be entering a product key here. I'll just click on I don't have a product key. And then I'll choose the version of Windows that I want to install. So I want to install Windows 10 Pro on this computer. But this also works if you want to install a home version of Windows, but I really recommend that you use Windows Pro. So I'll select that, then click on Next. Now I'll need to select the drive where I want to install Windows. And if you currently have a Windows installed on your system, there is a way that you can keep all of your files while reinstalling Windows. And I'll link a video in the cards now that you can check out if you want to reinstall Windows and keep all of your files. What I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to be formatting this SSD, which I'll be installing Windows on. And that means I'll be losing everything on my current installation and I'll be deleting all of that. So I'm just going to select this drive here and then click on delete, and I'll do that for the other partition as well until the only thing that I have left is unallocated space. Then I'll select that and click on next, and that's going to start installing Windows. So once again, I'll speed this part up until we get to the next stage. So once this initial part of the setup is finished, it's going to restart the computer, and after it restarts, that's when the first set of commands is going to run. That's included in the answer file. So once it's restarted, the phase that it's going to boot into now is called the specialize phase, and that's where most of the commands are being run in the answer files that I've created. So as you can see there is one of the PowerShell windows that's opened, and that's basically running all of the commands that I've included in the autounattend answer file. Now in the future, I might look at silently running these scripts, so you might not even see these windows, but in that event, your computer might be on this getting ready screen for a long time, and in that case, you just need to have some patience. Once all of the scripts has finished running, your computer will restart again, and then you'll be taken to the onboarding experience. And in the onboarding experience, you need to select your region again. So I'm just going to click on yes because my region is correct. Then you can choose a keyboard layout, then click on yes. And if you want to add a second layout, you can do that. I'm just going to click on skip. And now it's going to download some updates from the internet. So during this installation, I am connected to the internet, and I'm doing that so I can show you that no bloatware is being added back into Windows, even with it downloading updates during this setup process here. So it's normally advised that when you install Windows, you just disconnect from the internet entirely and just do an offline install and then only connect to the internet once Windows has finished installing. But you don't need to do that with this answer file because the settings that I've included basically makes it so that you can install Windows with an internet connection as well, and there won't be any drawbacks to it. So next you'll have to create a username, and I'm just going to call this memory. Then click on next. Then you'll be prompted to enter a password. Now, I've seen people think that they have to enter a password. You don't need to enter a password. You can leave it blank and then just click on next, and then it'll just create that account without a password. And there were also some requests to sign in with a Microsoft account. You can do that once you've created the user, and I'll show you how to do that. You just can't do it during the onboarding experience, but you can still sign into your Microsoft account afterwards. So once it's done with this stage here, it'll take you to your desktop, but in a few moments time, there's going to be another command prompt window that'll open, which is going to run a few scripts like you see there, and then your computer is going to restart automatically. So you have to wait for that to complete before you can go ahead and do something in Windows. So once again, the computer is just restarting now. Then you'll be loaded into your user, and then you can start using your Windows installation. So like I said, this is the LTSC-like version of my answer file, which includes Microsoft Edge and the Microsoft Store. So you can still use those apps to download stuff. And if you click on the start menu here, you'll also have these tiles here, which you don't have on the standard version, but you still have some included apps here like the calculator and all of that. It's all explained on GitHub, but what I want to show you here is if you go to the settings and you go to accounts, or you just look up here where it says you have a local account, you can just click on sign in, and then you can go ahead and sign in with your Microsoft account if you really want to use a Microsoft account on your computer. Also, if we go and have a look at the updates here, you'll see that some of these settings are managed by your organization. And if you click on this button here that says view the configured policies, you can just see what policies have been set. All that this means is you'll be getting security updates, but any feature updates which will install bloatware will be delayed for a year. So if we go back and we just do a check for updates, you'll see that the updates are still working. And I'm not going to be fully updating the system in this video. This is just an example to show you that this still works, and most importantly, you still get driver updates with this version of Windows as well. So you'll still have a fully functional Windows system. It's just you won't be receiving those feature updates, which usually adds bloatware back into the computer. If you go and have a look at the apps here and have a look at the installed apps, this is the list that you see here in the Windows 10 version. And then also if we just go and have a look at the task manager, and we have a look at the performance tab here on the LTSC-like version of Windows 10, this is basically what you can expect with regards to CPU processes and the memory that's being in use. Now, obviously, I'm running Windows Update while showing you this, so this might be a bit skewed, but that is basically how you can install Windows. Now, if we go ahead and exit the Task Manager and we open the File Explorer, if we navigate to Local Disk C and then Windows, and then go to Setup and Scripts, here you'll see all of the scripts that were running during the Windows installation process, and there are also some logs included here. The only one that doesn't have a log is the current user.cmd file, and that's just a file that runs for the first time when a new user logs into his profile. But you can have a look at all of these logs if you want to see if these things completed successfully. And if you want to run any of these files again, I guess you can do that too. But I just wanted to show you this so you know where these files are saved. But you don't ever even have to come into this directory here. You can just leave these files on the computer and use your computer as is. I just wanted to show you where the scripts are saved during the Windows setup process. So that's basically it for installing Windows using method 1. Now let's have a look at how to install Windows using method 2. So for method 2, you need to download your preferred autounattended.xml file and then download either the Windows 10 or Windows 11 ISO file, depending on the version you want. And I've already shown you how to do that at the start of this video, so I'm not going to be showing it again. You can just go back and watch that part if anything is unclear. But what you need to do next is download and install AnyBurn. So I'm just going to open that in a new window again. And then once you get to the AnyBurn website, you can then download the 64-bit edition here of the free version of AnyBurn. It's going to download to your computer, and then you can just run that file, which will open the installer. You can just go through the normal setup prompts until it installs, and then you can create a desktop icon if you want. I'm not going to be doing that, and then just launch AnyBurn after the installation. So I'll click on close, which will then open AnyBurn, which is this program that you're seeing here. Now what you need to click on here is edit image file. Once you've clicked on that, you need to select an image file. Now, The image file basically means the Windows ISO file that you downloaded earlier. Now, I've already shown you how to install Windows 10 in method 1. So like I said, for method 2, I'm going to be using the Windows 11 ISO file, and it's saved on my desktop. So I need to select that image file. So if I click on this folder here to browse and then go to my desktop, I have the Windows 10 and Windows 11 ISO file saved here. I'm going to be using the Windows 11 one, so I'll select that, then click on open. It'll add it there. Then you can click on next. Now we can edit the image file, and here is all the files that's saved inside of that ISO file. So now you have two options. You can either click on the add button up here, which will open a new window. Then you can navigate to where you saved the autounattended.xml answer file that you downloaded in step 1, and then just click on add, which will then add it to the image file here. Or alternatively, I'm just going to remove this as an example. You can just select the answer file on your computer and then drag it over to this window here, which will also add it to the ISO file. It's just two different ways of accomplishing the exact same thing. You just need to get the autounattended.xml file onto the root of the ISO file like I've done here. And once again, I'm just going to repeat this so you don't miss it. You need to make sure that the file name is exactly like you see here. It needs to be autounattend.xml. It can't be any other name. It has to be exactly that file name. So once it looks like this, you can then click on next. And then what I suggest you do is you can click on this folder here and then choose a save location for where you want to save the new ISO file that you just created. So in this case, I'll also save it on the desktop, but I'm going to give it a new file name, and I'll call this Windows 11 unattended, just so I know that the auto unattended answer file is included in that ISO image. So once I've done that, I'm just going to click on save, and I'm not going to be touching any of the other settings. Then just click on create now. And that's going to start creating the new Windows ISO file with the answer file included onto it here on my desktop, because that's where I chose to save it. And as you can see, it's called Windows 11 Unattended ISO. So once it's finished here, you can then just exit and close AnyBurn, and then you'll have this ISO file here. Now you can use this ISO file to install this Windows on a virtual machine if you're planning on installing it on a virtual machine. But like I said earlier in the video, I'm going to be showing you how I install it on physical hardware on a physical computer. So to do that, the next step I'm going to take is to download Ventoy. So right here in step 4, I'm just going to open Ventoy in a new tab. So I'll go to the Ventoy GitHub page then, and then I'm just going to download the latest Ventoy release and download the Windows version of Ventoy, which will then download a zip file to the computer. Now I'm just going to show this zip file in the downloads folder, which is my desktop in this case. And then I'll just right click on it and then extract it into the same directory here, which will then open this Ventoy folder where I'll have these files. Now, once again, this is where you'll need to plug in your USB flash drive that you want to use for the Windows installation media. Then you can click on Ventoy to disk here, which will open this window that you see here. So as you can see, it's detecting my USB flash disk, which is 32 gigabytes. And like I mentioned in method 1, you need to have a flash drive that's at least 8 gigabytes in size, or else you won't be able to put the Windows ISO file onto it. But once Ventoy detects your USB flash drive, you can then click on install, and you'll receive a warning that says the drive will be formatted and all of the data will be lost. Do you want to continue? So basically, if there's any important files on your flash drive, you need to make a backup of those first or save them somewhere else, because if you go ahead with this step, they will be deleted. So I don't have any data on that drive that I need. I'm just going to click on yes, and you'll get the same warning once again. Just click on yes again, and it will then start installing Ventoy onto the USB flash drive. Once it's finished, you'll see that Ventoy has been successfully installed on the device. So if you go ahead and click on OK and then close Ventoy and then navigate to this PC, you'll see that you have a Ventoy flash drive. And in some cases, you might also see a Ventoy EFI drive, and you don't want to be saving the files on the EFI partition. You need to save it on the drive that has the normal Ventoy label. So I'm just going to open this, and you'll see there are no files on this Ventoy drive. So what we need to do next is we need to get our unattended Windows ISO file that we created with AnyBurn, and then just copy it over onto the Ventoy flash drive. So as you can see, this is going to take about 10 minutes. So once again, I'll just speed this up in the video. So once the ISO file has finished copying onto the Ventoy flash drive, like you can see here, this is the Ventoy flash drive and it's finished copying. Then you can go ahead and use the USB flash drive to install Windows on the computer that you want to install Windows on. So I'll go ahead and plug that into the computer I'm going to install Windows on. So as the computer is starting up, I'm going to press F12 so I can enter the boot menu. And like I've explained in method 1 as well, the key to access your boot menu might not be F12, it might be a different key. And in that case, you must just do a Google search on how to enter the boot menu on your computer or laptop. So in the boot options here, I have this generic USB flash disk and I have the UEFI generic USB flash disk. Now the good thing about Ventoy is that you can use any one of these two methods to do the install. But if you have the UEFI option, I suggest that you use that. So I'm going to select that and then press enter on the keyboard, which will then boot from the Ventoy flash drive. Now you might have seen there that there was a screen that said secure boot is disabled on my motherboard, and I have disabled it. And there's a chance that you might see a screen like this. And if you see this screen, you just need to enroll a new key from the Ventoy disk. And I'm showing you exactly how to do that on the screen now. So you can just go ahead and do that. But if you didn't see that screen and it's booted into the Ventoy flash drive, you should be seeing this screen that I have here. And this is the Ventoy boot screen. And as you can see, there is the Windows 11 unattended ISO file. So if I press enter, I can then boot in normal mode. And that's going to boot from our unattended Windows ISO file. So this computer that I'm installing Windows 11 on now is not supported for Windows 11. It's a 3rd gen i5, if I'm correct. And these answer files bypasses all of the Windows 11 requirements. So those windows that you saw flashing there, those are the commands that bypass the Windows 11 system requirements. So as you can see, I've got the normal Windows setup screen here. And if you've installed Windows before, you'll be familiar with the process that we're going to be going through now. But basically, I'm just going to change the time and currency format. So once again, I'm just going to select my regional settings and then click on next. I'm not going to be entering a product key. I'll just click on I don't have a product key. And then I'm going to be installing Windows 11 Pro, and you can also install Windows 11 Home. It depends on what license you have, but I really do recommend that you install Windows Pro. Even if you don't have a license for it, you can always buy a license and then activate it. Now, once again, I'll need to choose where I want to install Windows. And like I said in method 1 as well, there is a way that you can reinstall Windows and keep all of your files. You can't keep your programs, but you can keep your files. And I'll have a link to a video down in the description that'll give you more information about that. But in this video, I'm going to be deleting all of these partitions. So basically, I'll be formatting the SSD completely. So I'm deleting the entire current Windows installation that's on here with all of the files and programs and all of that, until I only have unallocated space left. Then I'll select that and then click on next, and that's going to start the Windows 11 installation. So I'm just going to speed this part up in the video again. Now, once the initial part of the Windows setup is finished, you'll see that your computer will restart. And once it restarts, it's going to go into the specialize phase, and that's where most of the commands will be running. So this phase of the installation is called the specialize phase. During the specialize phase, you'll see these types of windows appear, and that's basically just PowerShell running all of the scripts and adding the registry entries and disabling a lot of the privacy settings and removing all of the installed packages. And basically, it's just automating a lot of the settings and stuff you would normally have to set manually in Windows. Now, in the future, I might look at removing these windows, so they'll still be running the scripts, but you'll just not see the windows appearing. But I'm just mentioning that because in the future, if you do install Windows and you don't see these boxes appear, the scripts will still be executing, but it'll just be silent and you won't physically see them being run on your screen. But once all of them have finished running, your computer will restart again. And then once it's restarted, you're going to be taken to the onboarding experience. So this is the onboarding experience, and usually you'd want to be disconnected from the internet when going through this part of the installation. But with the commands that I've added in the answer file, you can still be connected during this phase and you'll be able to skip all of the Microsoft account login screens. So I'm just going to click on yes, as this is the correct region for me. Then just choose a keyboard layout, and I won't be adding another one. I'll just click on skip. Now it's going to check for updates, and that's because I'm currently connected to the internet. But like I mentioned before, you won't be forced to sign in with a Microsoft account, but you can still sign in with a Microsoft account after you went through this process. So I'm going to enter my name here. I'm just going to call this user profile memory, then click on next. Then you'll be prompted to enter a password. Now, a lot of people think that you have to enter a password here, but you don't have to enter anything. You can just leave it blank and then click on next, which means there won't be any password on your user account. It's going to check for some more updates and probably install those. And the reason I'm installing it with an internet connection is to show you that no bloatware is being installed back into the Windows installation. And that's because of the policies I set for the Windows updates, which will only have it install security updates and driver updates, but no feature updates will be installed for at least 1 year. So once it's finished with the onboarding experience, you'll be taken to the desktop and it's immediately going to start running a script, and you'll see that here as a command prompt window. And what that script does, it basically just applies a whole bunch of registry entries to the current user, and that's going to be running every time a new user logs in for the first time. So once it's finished, it'll also restart the computer, and then once it's restarted, you'll be able to start using your computer. So as you can see, it's loading into the user profile that I created. And because this is the LTSC-like version of the answer file that I created, Microsoft Edge and the Microsoft Store is still included. And a few things I want to show you, which I also showed in method 1 on Windows 10, is if you want to sign in with a Microsoft account, you can go to the settings, and then you'll have the option to sign in here with a Microsoft account, or you can even click on the Accounts tab and then just click on Sign In. And you'll still be able to use a Microsoft account on this version of Windows if you really want to use a Microsoft account. The other thing is, if you go to Windows Update, you can check for updates, and the updates will still be working, but it'll only be security updates and driver updates. It's not going to be any feature updates, at least for a year. So as you can see, it is working. And if you go to the advanced options to optional updates, there will also be some driver updates here that you can select and install. But if we go and have a look at the start menu and we have a look at all apps, you can see a lot of the bloatware has been removed. And then another thing we can have a look at is if you go to this PC, then local disk C, and you go to Windows, to the setup folder, then scripts. Here is all the scripts that were run during the Windows installation process, and you can find log files to these as well. But basically you don't need to touch anything here. I'm just showing you this because this is the directory where all of these scripts have been saved after the Windows installation. But what I suggest you do is just leave it as is. So I'm just going to close this window here. And if we have a look at the task manager, we can just quickly have a look at the performance tab. And this is what you can expect. It's about 85 processors and it's about 2 gigs of RAM in use, but bear in mind I am currently running Windows Update, and that'll obviously cause this to be a bit more than it normally would. But just one other thing that I want to show you is if we go to the system page here, you can see that this is an Intel Core i5 3rd gen CPU and it's on 4 gigs of RAM. So basically this hardware is not supported by Windows 11, but by using the answer file, I've bypassed all of those requirements, and this is Windows 11 23H2. So now you can go ahead and you can use your Windows installation for whatever you need. I think that about covers it for the step-by-step guide on how to install this version of Windows on your computer, and I've really tried to think of everything and mention everything, so even people who don't have a lot of computer knowledge will be able to understand what's happening and how to install this on their computers. Now, like I also mentioned here in the conclusion on the GitHub page, I do also have a Discord community, and you can also leave some suggestions in the discussions tab here on GitHub, so you're welcome to do that as well. But with that being said, I hope you enjoy a bloatware-free version of Windows and that you found some sort of value in this project. And I'm planning on doing regular updates on these files and creating different versions as well. So always check back here when you are about to reinstall Windows, because maybe there will be a file that automates a lot of stuff that you would normally do manually after each installation of Windows. But once again, thanks for all of the support and thanks so much for watching. I'll talk to you guys soon.